Hey guys, Alex here from the DMs Club on the Titan Bear Gaming YouTube channel. I'm taking you through Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and today I'm focusing on the new martial archetypes available to the fighter class. So just like all the other classes, the beginning of the fighter section has a couple of statements about different things that you can incorporate to improve your roleplay or to help you ground your fighter more into your game world. It first talks about having a heraldic sign. This will be some kind of sigil or some kind of group or organization whose symbol you identify with, and maybe you've got this symbol on your armor or on your cape or something like this. Something to help give you some kind of order that you belong to give your character a little bit more meaning in the game. They talk about your possible instructor, whether you come from some kind of war college or if you received one-on-one tutelage from some kind of fighter. I like this one. This one reminds me of a couple of cases. It reminds me of the Count of Monte Cristo, when the main character was receiving his private tutelage, or maybe in Game of Thrones when you've got Arya's character who is learning how to be a water dancer from her teacher Syrio Farrell, or even from the Faceless Men over in Bravos. It helps to add a little bit more flavor and gives you, I like as a dungeon master, having NPCs from a character's backstory that act as handles that I can then use and bring into the game to help bring the character's backstory into the story as we're telling it going forward. It also talks about your signature style. What kind of fighter are you? Are you going to be a brute force fighter? Are you an elegant fighter? Are you a cunning fighter? Do you fight effortlessly? Things like this. This is useful for helping you get some sense of what kind of motions your character is going to perform while they're in battle, and ultimately what kind of personality your character is going to have in the game. Okay, on to the real meat of the issue, martial archetypes. People are going to be real happy with the martial archetypes that are available for a fighter here in Xanathar's Guide. If you main a fighter, you're real happy with these, and if you don't main a fighter, you're certainly going to be thinking about maining a fighter after having some of these. The first one is Arcane Archer. Now this one is a nod back to the previous Arcane Archers of previous editions. Arcane Archer does come back, I think, from all the way back in Advanced D&D back in 2nd edition. And they're bringing it back here in 5th edition as a standard archetype, not as a prestige class or anything like that. So you would get to pick this at level 3. The Arcane Archer does follow the usual style for an Arcane Archer, which is bent around this concept of having your Arcane Shot. This is taking a bow attack, a bow weapon, and making some kind of magically imbued ranged attack out of it that performs some other kind of magical features. Now, first you start out by getting Arcane Archer lore. This gives you proficiency in Arcana or the nature skill. You get this at level 3, and you get to choose either the Prestidigitation or Druidcraft cantrips. That's cool, helps to fill out your magical arsenal a little bit. Arcane Shot. The details for Arcane Shot is once per turn you may do it, and it's anytime that you fire a magic arrow from a short bow or a long bow as a part of the attack action, you can do an Arcane Shot with it. Now this is important to recognize that it starts out by saying a magic arrow. At level 3, this means that your dungeon master does need to know that they need to be providing you with magic arrows, magic ammunition. It's not the bow that's magic, it's the arrow that has to be magic for this. That does get alleviated once you reach level 7 for magic arrow, where it gives you the ability to convert a non-magic arrow into a magic arrow. But from levels 3 to 7, your DM's going to have to help you out here in terms of making magic arrows available to you, or you're going to have to then make it a point to seek out magic arrows whenever you're in towns or something like this. Once per turn, when you make this Arcane Shot, you get to decide which kind of Arcane Shot is going to happen with it. You have 2 uses of the ability, and you recover it whenever you finish a short or long rest. So you're going to be doing this a lot, which is good because it's the Arcane Shot that makes the Arcane Archer worth playing. Now when you pick this up at level 3, you get to learn 2 kinds of Arcane Shots, and we'll cover some of them later. There's a pretty big list for them, but and as you grow in your levels, you get to pick up additional ones as you go forward. Like I said, at 7th level, you get Magic Arrow, which converts non-magical ammunition into magical ammunition for the purposes of being able to overcome damage resistances and immunities, but also to be able to activate Arcane Shot. At 7th level, you get a cool thing, Curving Shot, which gives you the ability that if you make an attack roll with a magic arrow and you miss, you can spend a bonus action to re-roll the attack onto a different target within 60 feet, so you get kind of a cool bending arrow effect, which can be pretty fun. I think if I was going to be running this for my game, I would probably give people the ability to just spend a bonus action and to pick a new target anyway without having to. Like let's say that you wanted to automatically fail fail the roll to bend the arrow around to a different person, maybe go around a wall or something, I would probably let that slide without even having to make the roll. At 15th level, you get Ever Ready Shot, which is when you roll, if you roll initiative and you don't have any uses of your Arcane Shot left, you get one to start out the combat. This can be really good for any cases where you're finding yourself doing kind of a run and gun style, maybe if you're being chased by something or you're trying to evade or flee some kind of terrible circumstance behind you, and you don't have time to stop for a short rest, because otherwise your Arcane Shots do come back on a short rest. So this helps give you a little bit of extra oomph to your Arcane Shots whenever you're not able to take a short rest. So it's pretty good. Now there are a whole bunch of Arcane Shot options that exist, and I'm not going to cover all of them, but they basically boil down to variations of the following. You've got something like Bursting Arrow, which is after you hit, you can choose to utilize Bursting Arrow, which is that the creature that you hit and all creatures within 10 feet take an additional 2d6 force damage, so it blows up the arrow whenever you strike someone, so that's good. That's a fairly typical one people will want to do. You can do Banishing Arrow, which temporarily banishes the target away, and again, all of your arrow shots, you have the ability to decide whether you're going to use them after you hit, so you have no possibility of wasting the shot on an attack that misses. Grasping Arrow, I predict, is going to be a pretty common one. Grasping Arrow is once the arrow hits the target takes an additional 2d6 poison damage, so it's always extra damage happens whenever you use our Arcane Shot. The target's speed is reduced by 10, and it takes 2d6 slashing damage on the first time each turn that it moves more than 1 foot. So if it tries walking away without taking these brambles off of it, then it takes some additional damage for it. And just like most of these other bramble style effects, it just needs to spend an action to make a athletics check to try and remove the brambles from itself. The last style of Arcane Shot is one that doesn't actually even require you to make an attack roll. Instead of making an attack roll, you either declare that you're going to be firing in a line for the Piercing Arrow style, or that you specify the singular target that you're going to attack. Instead of making an attack roll, you instead force the target to, or targets, if you're doing the line style, to make dexterity saving throws. And even if they save their dexterity saving throws, even if they pass them, they still take half damage from the effect. So no matter what, it's guaranteed damage, which is honestly the real value in being able to do these things. Piercing Arrow is cool. It basically pierces straight down a line in kind of a magic arrow effect. Think back to something like a Gauntlet Legends dungeon crawler style thing, where everything in the path takes damage regardless of whether it's behind cover of any type. And the last one of Seeking Arrow, you specify the target that you want to attack because you know who they are, and the arrow automatically goes and homes towards that target and then strikes them. When the arrow strikes them, you, the shooter, now know where that person is. So it can be particularly useful for if you're trying to track somebody down or something to that effect. So that's the Arcane Archer. It's very heavily built on this Arcane Shot concept, but I think that the options that you get for it will make it pretty useful. I think people will like that a lot. The next archetype that's available is the Cavalier. Now this one is also a nod to the prior versions of the Cavalier for the fighter back in previous versions of D&D. And previously it's a little bit of a controversial one because it's either way overpowered whenever a Cavalier gets on a mount, or it's way underpowered if the Cavalier's not on a mount, and you regularly find yourself in situations where you can't bring a mount into a dungeon or a ruins or something like that. I like the way that they come up with it for 5th edition. They basically made the Cavalier have a very protector element or a defender element, which is nice. I think that a lot of players like to do the kind of protector style of gameplay, and they don't otherwise have a whole lot of other options. The Barbarian did have a couple of things added to it now to give you that as an option. I like the way that they bring it in here for the Cavalier. When you pick up the Cavalier at 3rd level, you do get some bonus proficiencies to start with, and this tries to help channel the idea that you are nobility or that you are a noble defender of some kind, so I like that. That's good from a thematic perspective. You can pick up things like history, insight, persuasion, stuff like that, things that'll help you talk or get by in more of a higher class society. You get Born to the Saddle at 3rd level, which basically makes it so that anytime that you're going to be getting on or off of a horse, you are better at it. You either have advantage on saving throws from being bucked off, or if you're going to get on or dismount the horse, it takes less of your movement to do so. So that's good. It basically helps justify you being a Cavalier. At 3rd level, you also get Unwavering Mark, which is kind of your major class feature that you pick up as a Cavalier. Effectively, the way that Unwavering Mark goes is anytime that you hit someone with a melee weapon attack, you can mark the creature until the end of your next turn. What this means is, while it is within 5 feet of you, A creature marked by you has a disadvantage on any attack roll against anybody else, so they basically want to be attacking you. Further, if that creature deals damage to someone other than you, you can make a special melee weapon attack against the marked creature as a bonus action on your turn. You have advantage on the attack roll, and if it hits, the attack's weapon damage deals extra damage to the target equal to half of your fighter level. So you do some bonus damage as kind of a retaliatory strike if the creature that you've marked does try to attack somebody other than you. You do have a limitation on the number of times that you can do this. You can mark, or you can make the special attack a number of times per day equal to your strength modifier. It recovers when you finish a long rest. So you do have a limited number of these per day. At 7th level, you get a very cool defensive power called Warding Maneuver, which is you can learn to fend strikes off directed at nearby people, including your mount or your allies or something else. If a creature you can see within 5 feet of you is hit by an attack, you can, as a reaction, roll 1d8 if you're wielding a weapon or a melee weapon or a shield. Roll the die, add the number that you roll to the target's AC against the attack. Can help them avoid the attack entirely. If the attack still hits, the target has resistance against the attack's damage, so no matter what, it's going to help regardless. You'll either avoid the damage entirely or you'll cut the damage in half. This is big. This is a nice juicy effect for helping to have your friends or your mount or somebody else take less damage. It really helps you channel the protector roll very well. You do have a limited number of times that you can do this per day, and it's equal to your constitution modifier, but you recover them every time you finish a long rest. At 10th level, you get a power called Hold the Line, which acts like the Sentinel feat does. Creatures provoke an opportunity attack from you whenever they move 5 feet while within your reach, so they don't even technically have to leave your melee range in order to provoke an opportunity attack. And if you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, their speed is reduced to 0 until the end of their current turn. So you do a pretty good job of locking down enemy movement patterns by simply getting up in their face. At 15th level, you get Ferocious Charger, which makes it so you can run down foes regardless of whether you're mounted or not. If you move at least 10 feet in a straight line before attacking, the creature has to make a strength save or be knocked prone. You can only use this feature once per each of your turns, but it does mean you can do it every turn, which is pretty cool. You can spend a lot of your time knocking people over. At 18th level, Vigilant Defender takes effect, which adds a really cool thing for your attack or your opportunity attacks. In combat, you get a special reaction you can take once on every creature's turn, except yours. You can use this special reaction only to make an opportunity attack, and you can't use it on the same turn that you take your normal reaction. So at 18th level, you're basically this reaction cannon, firing off these attacks of opportunity whenever you get the ability to do so. So that's the Cavalier. I like it. I like that it's taking more of a defender and more of a protector style, which I think people would like to do. I think there's a lot of players that want to channel that. I think that it is an interesting that they don't put a whole lot in terms of boosting your mounted combat, which some people might miss a little bit from prior editions, but you do get Ferocious Charger, so you can do it whether or not you're on a mount or otherwise. And I like the Unwavering Mark and the Warding Maneuver abilities that you get. I think it's going to go a long way towards helping you to boost up the defensive capabilities for your team. The last archetype that's available for the fighter is the Samurai, which also has kind of a cool nobility aspect similar to the Cavalier. I like the Samurai. I think the Samurai is going to see a lot of use. I would play the Samurai out of the 3 options that are available here. Basically, the idea is that you are playing as a fighter who has an implacable fighting spirit and an unbreakable resolve. Basically, you have this strength of determination that fuels your fighting style. You get bonus proficiencies at 3rd level when you start out, and this is, again, channeling your nobility concept of giving you something like history, insight, performance, persuasion. Alternatively, you could learn a language if you wanted. You get Fighting Spirit at 3rd level, which is your real mechanic for being a fighter here. As a bonus action on your turn, you can give yourself advantage on weapon attack rolls until the end of the turn. Huge, right? You don't take any kind of penalty or anything. It just costs you a bonus action to get it. In addition, you also gain 5 temporary hit points when you do it. The number of hit points that increases when you reach certain levels, going up to 10 at 10th level, 15 at 15th level, etc. You can just do this as a bonus action. You can use this feature 3 times and you regain all of expended uses when you finish a long rest. But as a bonus action, it gives you advantage on all attack rolls made for that round. This pairs really well once you hit 5th level and you start getting extra attacks, as well as when you're doing your action surge, which doesn't actually cost you a bonus action. So you basically want to be pairing this up with action surge as much as possible to be doing a whole bunch of weapon attacks that all have advantage. You're going to be getting some wicked crits out for that one. Plus you get the extra temporary hit points, which is always nice. At 7th level, you get Elegant Courtier, which gives you a bonus to anytime that you want to make a Charisma Persuasion check. That bonus is equal to your Wisdom modifier, so it helps you get a little bit extra benefit out of your Wisdom score. In addition, you also get Proficiency against Wisdom saving throws. If you already have that, then you can choose Intelligence or Charisma otherwise, so you're going to get an extra saving throw proficiency, which is always good. At 10th level, you get Tireless Spirit, which is just like the Arcane Archer one in that if you start initiative and you don't have any uses of your fighting spirit, you get one back. This one's really big. I actually think this one's even bigger than the Arcane Archer version of recovering one whenever you roll initiative. This basically means that you're always going to be able to do your fighting spirit action, which is really helpful. Since it's the core of your archetype, it's good that you're going to be able to do this a lot. At 15th level, you get Rapid Strike, which gives you the ability to take some slightly different benefit from having advantage on attacks. Let's say that you already have a really good to attack bonus. Your bonus to attack is already really high, or maybe you're against things that don't need that high of an attack bonus. At 15th level, you can do Rapid Strike, which lets you trade advantage on an attack for just making another attack. So that way you can have the additional option of getting more damage out instead of just automatically getting advantage for something that you were probably going to hit for anyway. At 18th level, you get Strength Before Death, which if you have seen my Barbarian video, you'll know that there's a similar effect for Barbarians where they get to continue fighting even after they've already reached 0 hit points. But this one's channeled in a little bit of a different way, and I think this one's actually very cool. The way that this one works is if you take damage that reduces you to 0 and you're not killed outright, then you interrupt that creature's turn to take a special turn of your own right then. And you get a full turn out of it. You have the ability to move, you get a bonus action, you get a regular action, you can do all the things that you would normally do. If you take damage from during that turn, then you're going to take the normal failed death saves and all of that goodness, so the normal death effects still happen, but you get to basically take this one last stand of movement and this last stand of actions before you die. When this extra turn ends, you still fall unconscious if you have 0 hit points at the end of your turn, but you have the ability that if you wanted to take a potion, you can keep yourself up, or if you just wanted to go out in a glorious blaze, this would be a great way to get a whole bunch of extra attacks in before you fall down. So those are the 3 new archetypes available for the fighter. I like all of them. I think people are going to like all of them. Like I said, if you aren't currently playing a fighter, I think that these are good enough reason to start thinking about playing a fighter. But let me know what you guys think down below. Give me a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you're already using these. Tell me what kind of experience you've had. Or if you remember some of the prior editions. I wasn't playing back during 2nd edition when some of these archetypes originally came out. So you tell me how this compares to those previous stuff. You can also come find me over on social media. I'm at Titan Bear Gaming, and I'm really active on Twitter, so you can come find me and talk to me there. I'd love to talk to you. Otherwise, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time I see you, have more fun, would ya? It's good for you.